All right, everybody, welcome back to the Business Roundtable Podcast. I am so excited. I'm your host, David Carr, steward your business, bringing teams together to accomplish great things. We have Angie here, Gildner. We're so glad to have her here. The FeMillionaire Society. We're going to talk a little bit more about that and what she brings, her unique skill set, and where she's helping women entrepreneurs in particular. I'm super excited to have her here. We met through the Success Champions Network, just an amazing place for business to business professionals. And Angie is just so much great energy and excitement. So I just, on behalf of all the of our listeners and viewers, thank you for joining us, Angie.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Hi, listeners. I appreciate the opportunity, David. This is going to be fun.
Absolutely, absolutely, Angie. I mean, when you and I were talking, I had told you, I had worked with a woman-owned small business before I started my own company, and how important it was to her to have resources and support. And I think the work that you're doing is so important out there. A lot of women, it's a challenge. I mean, it's a challenge for men and women, but I think particularly for women, I think you have uh, a background and where you've come in your journey, and now you're looking and helping women become part of this. I like you call it the speakeasy. If you're creating this space and this environment for them to come in for real growth. I was looking at your website, but I like meaning I like the fact that you're creating an environment is what I want to get at in a space where we can move past some of the struggles that men and women are facing. But kind of talk about a little bit about your journey. What got you to create this, this business and where you're at, Angie?
Well, like a lot of women, I created my business out of a diversity, or I should say adversity. Easy for me to
Yeah.
say, but it was an adversity. And to make a long story short, I had worked for this organization for 10 years. I had built and developed the program, and it was generating heaps of revenue, like $1 million plus revenue a year. And it was time to onboard a new hire. We interviewed multiple people, hired this young man fresh out of college, and I was fresh out of college too once, so not a problem there. But what I learned was that the executive director offered him $3,000 a year more than I was making. I was the supervisor and director of the program. I had been there for 10 years. At that point, I had 18 years of experience in the particular profession I was in. And this young man graduates college and gets offered $3,000 a year more than me. I don't think so. So I would like to say that I was super professional and I went into the office and sat down and had a rational conversation. Yeah, that's a big old lie. So I dropped some F-bombs and it was an ugly conversation. Walked out, never to be heard or seen from again. 4 days later, I started my business. I had my LLC and I was off the ground and running. Now, to make this story just a little bit worse, when the executive director found out I started my business, he called and left me a voicemail and said, "When you fail, I will gladly accept your resume back." And I was like, okay. So that was 12 years ago. I kept that voicemail for 5 years and I used it as fuel.
Oh, wow.
And said, never again will anybody ever tell me that's all you're worth, nor will anybody ever put a cap on the amount of money I can make.
Wow. Wow. Well, I like that you took that fire and you've shifted it. And I think a lot of women, I like this idea, like you said, that the cap. There are a lot of women that maybe any men, but play small. They're like, I say, playing not to lose is playing to win. And I feel like you're calling people, women up in particular to say, look, learn from your experience and be inspired. And why not you, right? Why not? Because otherwise you could just stay silent and just, right?
Yep.
And how's that going to help you? How's that going to get you to, where you're at today?
Right.
Obviously helping so many women. in their businesses. And if you didn't take this step, you'd be missing out reaching all these women. Um,
Yeah. I felt like if I didn't do something, a couple of things would happen. For one, that would be saying that I was okay with it, and I
mhm,
wasn't. And for
right.
two, I felt like that was just going to be, I'm a firm believer in we treat people how we teach people how to treat us.
Oh yeah.
And if I would have accepted that, I would have been teaching this executive director that it would be okay to treat me that way. And
Mhm.
absolutely not. No one, I don't care who you are, no one deserves to be treated that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I maybe it's stereotypical to say this, Angie, but I feel like, sometimes I was just talking with a client right now, and I think sometimes women they're mute themselves instead of like speaking up, and they're not
Mm,
empowered to speak. And I think men, it's maybe a little bit more socially acceptable to speak up a little bit. And so learning to access your voice, like you said, Angie, like, no, your voice needs to be heard. We need you to speak up and have the confidence, right?
yeah, yep. Well, the safe bet would have been to stay, because what I didn't share is at the time, um, I was supporting my husband while he was supporting his dream and going to school full time to be a school teacher during a midlife career shift. So I
Mm.
was the sole income. So the safe
Yeah.
thing would have been to stay. And I was like, no, absolutely not. And luckily my
Mhm.
husband supported me. I mean, he still does. Like he just is my biggest cheerleader for
Yes.
everything that I do, which is great. But he did have a couple of butt pucker moments, because he was like, whew, we have a mortgage.
Right.
So,
Oh, goodness. Well, that balances each other. I'm so glad you have that. It's so important. But like you said, the cost of staying silent would have been much worse. And I think
yeah,
sometimes, we're afraid to ask those questions, right? But look at the shift that when we do ask the questions and we consider that possibility, right, Angie?
yes, yes,
And I think that's so
absolutely.
important. What you're doing, the work that you're doing is helping create a space, asking the questions, providing an environment for them to step up, and not just anybody. That's why we have folks like you on the podcast, Angie, because we want folks to come and listen here. And you've graciously already shared your calendar link, which I'm going to provide here to listeners. But to listen and take it in, and see the relationship that Angie and I have, and with so many others. Don't go cold, but come in here and experience that. Now we're going to get into a little bit more about Angie's background and what she's doing and how she's coaching. But I think there's a real pressure out there sometimes to look like we have it all together, and try to hold this image, right, Angie? Like, okay, we've got it all together, and what is that? What's the cost of that? Like you said, when we are pretending, we're not living in our authentic self, right?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Matter of fact, I literally just had this conversation in my SCN chapter this morning,
Hmm.
about how, like, right now I'm kind of sitting in a decision fatigue moment. And so I kind of put myself in the hot seat and said,
Mm.
okay, I need some help because I'm sitting in some decision fatigue. And the
Mhm.
consensus was like, basically like, "Oh my gosh, you are normal." Like, you, and I'm like, "Wait, I yes, like I really don't have my shit together." Right? Like, like, you
We
know,
all have moments like that. Absolutely.
right. And so there was like this relief that came across, and we were all laughing. And I was like, I mean, I appreciate the confidence in me, but yes, there are. I mean, I have my moments. Imposter syndrome creeps in from time to time. I definitely
Mhm.
question some of the things. Been doing this for 12 years, and some things
Mhm.
come second nature, but some I'm still like, okay, I got to figure it out. What's, like,
Yep.
this isn't my zone of genius, or who do I need
Mhm.
to hire to help me with this? And but I was so taken back because I didn't realize that was the perception. But no, I'm just yeah. I might be half a step ahead, but
I think, well, I love the fact that you put yourself in a hot seat. The concept of a hot seat, for those of you that haven't considered it, is just putting yourself in front of peers, colleagues, that they're asking you questions, clarifying, you know, you have a problem or a challenge. And so they're just giving you perspective. And the fact that, Angie, you're leading from what you're living, that's what I love about, having folks like yourself on the podcast. It's like, no, I've been there. I go there at times where I may be a few steps ahead of you, and that's sometimes all we need. All of us are maybe a few steps ahead of somebody and a few steps behind others, right?
yes,
And we're
100%.
just helping those people that may be behind us. Let's move them ahead, and we're looking for people to help us ahead ourselves, right?
Yes,
No.
100%. And I often share the story of my first year in business. I had $2.84 in my business bank account.
Oh, that's
I
a
was
great story. I listened to your it's on your website. Yeah,
I
right?
was feeling it, not so much. I was like, okay, maybe I need to learn a few things here, but I did start my business in 4 days, and which I don't recommend doing, by the way. Let's
Yes.
just be honest about that.
Yeah.
But my I'm a little bit more stubborn than most, I will say, but and
Hmm.
determined, because I was just like, because I had a lot of fuel in my fire, right?
Yeah.
But so I just had to figure it out. And that's when I learned, like, as a coach, I always need a coach. Like, I
Hmm.
always need to
Me
be
too.
learning. I always need to be growing. And I've just kept with that ever since.
That no, and well, I with you 100%. I liked your one of the things I was going through your materials. By the way, connect with Angie. She's on LinkedIn as well, and we'll put her link to the website. Uh, but one of the things I really liked in your messaging was that one size doesn't fit all for things.
Mhm.
And so you have to understand, and this partly goes to understanding yourself, because if we don't understand and appreciate ourselves, we kind of take everything equal, and not everything is equal. And so
Right.
when you're looking at a coach or anybody you're hiring or bringing into your world, you know,
Yeah.
they might look this. I mean, technically, okay, maybe there's some things, but there's not. Well, there's differences in there, and so it's important to understand,
Yeah.
that, right, Angie? I mean, that's one thing I really appreciated, that you're looking at this, way, and particularly for women, like, how do we personalize this for you in your life and where you're coming from, right?
Yep. Right where you're at, not
Yeah.
where I think you are, not where I think you should be.
Hmm.
And I don't even tell you where you're going. That's up for you to decide,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And I'm here alongside of the journey with you, but everything is customized. I'm about as anti-cookie cutter as they get. Like,
Yeah.
because you go out and you look at, I call it the free coach of Google, and you look at the free coach of Google and it says, do this and it'll work and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, for 3% of the people, it will work because that's their
Yep.
style. It meets them where they're
Mhm.
at. But what about the rest of us? Right?
Yep.
Like, and so we spend all of this time, and which equals all of this money,
Mhm.
throwing spaghetti against the wall, hoping that it sticks based on something that we read, going, but they said it would work. And it's like,
Mhm.
well, you didn't fall into that 3%. Well, I don't like those odds very much, right?
Yeah.
So I want to customize everything for you, not for the business side of you. I have women who sit in the exact same space. They're in sustainable tourism. Their businesses are vastly different. And they both know that I'm coaching each other. And I've had them say, you're not sharing this with this one. And you're not. And I'm like, no, because your business isn't their business, or her business isn't your business, type of thing. She's not
Mhm.
where you are. You're serving
Mhm.
different people in different ways. So no, absolutely
Mhm.
not. You know, because
Mhm.
I would be doing a disservice to both of them if I just
Right.
said, oh, here's the cookie cutter approach, do this.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, that comes from your years of experience and understanding and appreciating where they're at on a whole different levels, because different people's capacity, what's like, is it the business model? Are you going to just be just you? Or you like want to have a team? Do you want to have independent contractors? What industry are you serving? Is this product based? Is this service based? I mean, so to say, like you said, well, it's worked for one person. Well, you're not a carbon copy of that other person, you
Oh,
know?
absolutely not. No, and we all learn differently. We all execute there. Our brands are different. I
Mhm,
mean, think about business coaches. We're a dime a dozen. We're like Dollar
mhm,
General. We pop up everywhere, right? Like
right.
it's
Yeah, yeah,
but we're all so vastly different
yes.
in our branding and different things. And so you really do have to connect with the brand whenever it is that you're hiring any type of coach.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, Angie, I've been in the environmental consulting space for 25 years. I just got off a call with one of a client, a woman-owned business in the environmental consulting space, and I know this space, and I know it's even in the Western United States, but there's a lot of nuances there. Now, if you ask me to go do the same thing with, I don't know, chiropractor, I could. I mean, I know some basic things, but that's
Sure.
not my expertise, right? So it's like understanding these nuances,
Yep.
and I agree. I think, and there's a great book, you probably read it, called E-Myth. But understanding this idea of the role of the entrepreneur, the technician, and the manager, right? And as an entrepreneur, I'm sure you're dealing with it, Angie, right? How do people understand that, especially if they've been an employee most of their life, right? Can you talk a little bit about that, about moving from that employee mindset to being entrepreneur mindset?
Yes, that's actually one of the things that I address almost immediately
Yeah.
is where is their mindset in that? Because if they're creating a job for themselves, great. I can coach you through creating a job for yourself, And so, but if you really want to lead or operate a business of significance, a business that really makes an influence and an impact on the world, which I would say 100% of my clients, that's their goal in some
Yeah.
way.
Yes.
Um, and then in return, that will increase their income.
Mhm.
And so it's like, okay, then we've got to get you into that CEO mindset
Mhm.
and really making that shift. And once the light bulb moments come on and they're like, it's so different. It's so different. And
Mm.
so I even start in the coaching, I even start saying, okay, CEO David, you are, and they're like, yes, I'm a CEO now.
Yeah, yeah,
um,
absolutely.
because it makes such a difference. And it, in the way that we make decisions, in the way that we manage our time, in the way that we operate our day to day. I mean, literally everything it impacts. And so, really getting that understanding of did you create a job for yourself? If you did, fine, not a
Mhm,
problem. We just need to be aware of that. Or
mhm,
do you want to operate a business of significance?
mhm. Well, and I love that too, because I say you're kinda cutting through the coaching, like, going without the fluff here. You're trying to get to the core of the issues here, and that's what I love that I saw on your website, not just you, but Sam and Seth, and this again, container for women to come in and just acknowledge where they're at. Okay, if they've created a job for themselves, just be clear with that, because sometimes I feel like people think that they're truly being entrepreneurial and building a business. In reality, they're not. They're building a job for themselves. And
Yep.
just be clear on that, right? Let's just not, you know,
Yep.
because because you're gonna do things differently, and you're gonna be frustrated if you're not getting the results. If you're really just created yourself, I'm just not working, I'm working for myself, but that's it, right? You
Yes.
know?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of things that I really try to strive for is at the end of the day is what's going to bring you joy because
Mm,
that's what's going to sustain you. That's what's going to fulfill you.
amen.
It, and even if you are working a regular job,
Mhm.
if it doesn't bring you joy, then why do you drive to it every day? Or why do you walk into your office every day? Right. So your
Right?
business is no different. Or if you've created an employment situation for yourself. I
Mhm.
call that survival, and
Yep.
that's okay. If you're
Yeah.
just wanting to create a job to survive, great, not a problem. But really, like you said, getting that clear understanding on that, it's super important. And then we can start, meet you right where you're at, and then we can build from there.
Mhm. Well, and I think sometimes feel like maybe it's an all or nothing, proposition, what you're saying, Angie, because, we all have to pay the bills. We all have to, there's certain things that we need to do. I agree with you, but it should hopefully find joy in most of it. Hopefully, it's not drudgery, whatever you're doing, whether you're the entrepreneur, whether it's going to a job every day. But what I found, at least in my entrepreneurial journey, was I felt like it had to be all or nothing. Where some people said follow your passions, and so it's like, do I just go and leave my job and do the passions? But could you speak a little bit about that journey of, like, if you're working the job, but you have this desire, I don't know, maybe it's making cookies or having a cake decorating class, or whatever the course or whatever that might be for you, right? Paintings or whatever that is. But they're like, sometimes there's this all or nothing mentality, Angie.
Mm. Yeah. So it really boils down to your capacity. And that's
Mm,
something that I really like to dissect is what
mhm,
is, and it's not only your time capacity, it's your energy capacity, it's your mental
mm,
capacity, it's your focus capacity. And so, what is your capacity for
mm.
being able to do this? And let's get real and let's get honest about this. Okay,
Yep.
you're working a job, not a problem. You want to have a side hustle, not a problem. But let's really dissect the capacity that you have because, and then we work from the goals, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, you tell me you want to make $10,000 a month on this side hustle, but you have low capacity. Is that realistic?
Mm,
Right? Yeah, probably not. Probably not,
mhm.
right? Unless
Yeah.
you have a $10,000 ticket at item, then you're confident you can sell one a month,
Yeah,
like,
good luck. Yeah.
good luck, right? Yeah, it's like so. Um, but really being able to just that's one, meeting people right where they are, but getting them to see things that are not necessarily visible to them, but visible to us as experts, right?
Mhm.
And so that's all part of coaching is like really
Yes.
being able to view things. And it's like, okay, but have you thought about let's talk about, and they're like, oh, and I love those moments when those happen.
Yes.
And they're like, oh my gosh, I never thought about that. Yes, thank you, that's why you pay me.
Exactly. No, no, seriously, that's it, Angie, because I feel like as a coach, right, you're compressing time. You could go do this and play around for years, right?
Yes,
Dibble dabble here and here, but then you have, coming into a space, an environment with like something like Angie that knows specifically women, entrepreneurs, and has been through the journey, go through all just jump through a lot of hoops that you don't have. She's already gone through this, right, Angie? You've and worked with so many women. It's like, let's
yes,
avoid those pitfalls, those challenges, so we can
yes,
move you further along your journey. And I think sometimes there's maybe talk a little bit about this. Sometimes I think there's a maybe we don't count the cost. So all this time is it's I don't say time is money, but time is your greatest, I don't know, currency, if you will, right? That we can invest where we can put time in. So why not, spend the quote unquote cash, that money, which we can generate a whole lot more with our time and efforts. But
yes,
sometimes there's a roadblock. There's a, like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. But yet I'll spend hours and tens and lots of time only to get really not a lot for it. You
yep,
know? You speak a little bit to that, Angie?
sure. You have
Yeah.
two options. So you either spend money to save time or you spend time to save money. Either way, you're going to pay.
Mm,
So I'm going to say that again. You either spend money to save time or you spend time to save money. So, how much time do you have to waste?
mm,
That's the question. Like for me, my first year of business, I don't view it as a waste because I learned a lot, but I walked away with $2.84 to show for it. I think that speaks for itself. I wasn't doing a lot of things right. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so I knew there had to be a better way. So I could continue down that road. And I can tell you that $2.84 came at a cost. Sleepless nights, crying, worry, scarcity mindset, fear. So the cost was much more exponential than the $2.84 I had sitting in my bank account. So I had to get real. I had to get honest and say, look, I can keep doing that. That's a choice. I could have, but I chose to invest in coaching because I never wanted to go back. I never wanted to feel that way again. I never wanted to have those experiences again. I was tired of crying myself to sleep and worrying and chasing a dollar and taking JOBs just to put money in my bank account and then being miserable. I'm like, why did I do this? I hate doing this. Oh, wait, because I need I don't have the 12 years later, fast forward, it's been years since I've taken a job like that. Years. And now I get to do what lights me up. I get to do what fulfills me. I get to do what's making a massive impact on my clients. That's in turn making a massive impact on the world and hopefully using my influence for good. My little devil horns coming out there. I'm taking over the world. No,
boy.
But I get to do this each and every day, and I don't have those days. I don't have the bad days. I don't cry myself to sleep. I don't have those nights anymore. And to me, that's priceless, right? Like, it's absolutely priceless.
Oh man, Angie, I know we're getting close to the end of our episode, but this, what you just shared is really priceless. I want people to listen what they're, hearing from Angie, who's done this for 12 plus years, that you don't have to just trade time for money. There's a better way, right? And somebody like Angie is one, and just like myself, that's why I have the Business Roundtable podcast, is we're sharing our information, encouraging you, and you're not alone. And I love, Angie, that you're being vulnerable. You're showing us how that this isn't a weakness. You learned a lot from that $2.84 in your bank account. Yes, it was difficult, but you've leveraged it. What I say is you've leveraged that to, take your business and your life to a whole nother level.
Yeah. Yeah. My dad always taught me, he never cared that I made a mistake as long as I learned from it. And so that was one of my little takeaways during that time. Of course, my dad would always be talking to me and say, okay, what are you learning? This obviously, you're not killing it with $2.84. So
right.
So you learn in here. And then what else do you need to learn? And then who has that knowledge? Because that's who you need to go after.
Yes, absolutely. I hope everybody's enjoying this episode. We are so grateful to have Angie on here. Angie, I'm going to give you a chance here as we're wrapping up the podcast, because there's so many different things you covered today. But, you're going to give people opportunity to come and have a conversation with you. For those of you that are listening, we're going to give you a link for that and all the other information there, including the link to the FeMillionaire. But we would love to have your just kind of key takeaways here as we're wrapping up, kind of like, what would you say if nothing else, they're listening to this podcast and they're saying, man, I listened to Angie today, and if I do this, I'm going to be in a better spot.
Yeah. So make a choice and stick with your choice. You either spend money to save time or spend time to save money. And as long as you're okay with either choice, then that's the right choice for you. But it's a choice nonetheless. And so choose wisely.
Choose wisely. Thank you, Angie. I'm super excited. We're going to have a whole bunch of resources in the podcast show notes, so you can definitely connect with Angie. I so appreciate you guys listening, subscribing, of course, following us on YouTube, LinkedIn, your favorite podcast platform. Come back for our next episode. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Have a great day. Thanks, Angie.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.